rate of reaction doesn't stay same. When H2O2 breaks down, it releases oxygen. As the reaction progresses, concentration of both reactants and products change with time. Molecules actually collide and rearrange the composition of hydrogen peroxide. So we get a point on the curve. So let's draw a tangent, which is last one is use of radiation. So let's look at how rate and concentration of the reactants are connected, called as law of mass action. Hello students, welcome to Learn It. As we have already discussed, chemical kinetics is the branch of chemistry that focuses on how fast or slow a chemical reaction occurs. So basically it deals with the rate or speed of the reaction. Also the factors influencing the rate of the reaction. It means the rate of reaction doesn't stay same. It is influenced by many factors like temperature, concentration, presence of catalyst, etc. Third important part of chemical kinetics is understanding the mechanism of the reaction. It means how the molecules actually collide and rearrange to form products. With this, let's begin with the rate of reaction. It is the change in the concentration of the reactants or products per unit time, and it can be expressed as change in the concentration of the reactants divided by time, which is equal to change in the concentration of the products divided by time. So the unit of rate of reaction is usually the moles per liter per time. To make this clear, let's look at an example, the decomposition of hydrogen peroxide, H2O2. When H2O2 breaks down, it releases oxygen gas. We can make sure how fast this reaction occurs by tracking the concentration of hydrogen peroxide over time. The animation hydrogen peroxide decomposes into water and hydrogen gas. This reaction is a great example to understand how the concentration of reactant changes over time. Now let's focus on the graph to visualize this process better. In a typical reaction, we plot concentration versus time. Here is how we do it for the decomposition of hydrogen peroxide. On the x-axis, we have time. On the y-axis, we have the concentration of hydrogen peroxide, that is H2O2. When the reaction begins, the concentration of H2O2 is at its maximum. As the reaction progresses, the hydrogen peroxide breaks down and its concentration decreases over time. Notice how graph shows a decreasing slope as the reaction continues. The rate of reaction is fastest at the start when the concentration of hydrogen peroxide is high. As more hydrogen peroxide converted into water and oxygen, the concentration becomes lower and the rate of reaction slows down. Eventually, the graph flattens out as the reaction nears completion and there is little to no H2O2 left on to decompose. Now let's look at the concentration of the product. Here we take oxygen gas over time. On this graph, we see that as the hydrogen peroxide decomposes, the concentration of oxygen gas increases. The more H2O2 breaks down, the more oxygen is produced and the graph rises steadily. The rate of reaction can be expressed from the graph. A steeper slope means a faster reaction, and as the graph flattens, the rate slows down. In conclusion, using graphs, we can clearly see how the concentration of both reactants and products change with time during the decomposition of H2O2. Next important concept is types of rate. There are two types of rate or speed. The first one is instantaneous rate and the second one is average rate. Instantaneous rate is the rate or speed of a reaction at a specific instant of time. Average rate means the speed or rate of a reaction between definite intervals of time. So let's discuss about them by using previous example, that is decomposition of hydrogen peroxide. So here we have two graphs, that is reactant versus time and product versus time graphs. So let's take reactant versus time graph. Now the question arises, what is the speed or rate of decomposition at 30th second? We know rate is equal to minus dr by dt. We have time axis, so let's draw a line at 30th second. It should cut the curve. So we get a point on the curve. So let's draw a tangent which is passing through that point. Now slope of that tangent gives us the rate, so which is equal to moles per liter per second. So this value gives us instantaneous rate. Now another question arises, what is the speed or rate of decomposition between 30 and 45th seconds? So we have the formula for rate. Point out the 30th second on time axis. Draw a line which should meet the curve. We get a point. From that point, draw a straight line which should meet the reactant axis. We get a point A. Similarly, do it for 45th second. We get a point B. Here, change in concentration means between the point A and B, and change in time is 30 minus 45th second. Modulus value is calculated because rate cannot be negative. So which gives a certain value in moles per liter per second. This is average rate. Next important concept of chemical kinetics is factors influencing the rate of chemical reactions. So here we are going to discuss about 6 main factors. First one is concentration of the reactant. Second one is temperature of the system. Third one is use of catalyst. Fourth one is nature of reactants and products. Fifth one is surface area of reaction. And the last one is use of radiation. So total 6 factors are there. So these factors which will influence the speed. So by altering these factors we can change or we can increase or decrease the speed of the reaction. So let's look at the first factor, that is concentration of the reactants. Here if we change the concentration, it means if we increase or decrease the concentration of the reactants, then the speed of the reactions can be changed. So let's look at how rate and concentration of the reactants are connected. So it was first studied by Gato Guldberg and Peter Weig in 1867. So they formulated a law called as law of mass action. So this is the first law which connects concentration of the reactants to the speed or rate of a chemical reaction.